Hi, I'm Greg Heaver and welcome to this latest edition of TD Corner, brought to you by the Bellarine Poker League on the beautiful Bellarine Peninsula in Victoria, Australia. Before I begin, I want to give a shout out to our amazing sponsor, the Treat Shack, the home of the best quality treats, sweets and lollies, and who are located in the Bellarine seaside town of Port Arlington. The question that I want to address today is one which has been doing the rounds of my weekly games during the last month or so, and accordingly I think it deserves some airtime. The question is, can muck cards be retrieved and made live again? A general premise in poker understood by all players is that once cards end up in the muck, they are considered dead. Everyone knows this. However, what is not so well known is that while this is technically correct, there are situations whereby muck cards can be made live again. I'm going to start by referencing the actual rules of poker to see what they have to say about this matter. Bear with me while I share my screen and we will look together at what pokertda.com has to say. For those of you who haven't heard of this reference, reading verbatim from their website, the Poker TDA is a voluntary trade association of the poker tournament industry. The association is dedicated to adopting a uniform set of poker tournament rules worldwide. I've got their rules section open on a separate tab. Scrolling down, if we scroll down to section 15, it states under the heading titled Showdown in Discarding Irregularity, if cards are mucked and not retrievable and identifiable to 100% certainty, the player is out. Similarly, if we go down to clause 65, under the heading Accidentally Killed, Fouled or Exposed Hands, where it states amongst other things, if in TD's judgment a hand is fouled and cannot be identified to 100% certainty, the player has no redress. Now, while these clauses relate to unique situations and not necessarily our question, I think regardless, how it is written suggests that these overarching principles can be applied to any set of related questions. Taking this further, let's have a look at what Robert's Rules of Poker has to say. This authority is one which is probably even less known than the Poker TDA. However, it is one that has gained a lot of credibility over the last number of years. Robert's Rules of Poker states in the section called Dead Hands, let me go to it right now, that cards thrown into the muck may be ruled dead. However, a hand that is clearly identifiable may be retrieved and ruled live at management's discretion if doing so is in the best interest of the game. So that's what the official rules tell us. What can be gathered from this is the question. For me, when it talks about TD's judgment and management's discretion, it says that the rules in this regard are anything but definitive, which is fine because that's just the nature of the game that we play and why there is a TD whose job it is to come in and make decisions based on the circumstances at the time, using the rules as a reference point but not a Bible. Given that, today I'm going to give my summation of what I go through when I'm called over and put in the hot seat. And yes, often I feel like it is the hot seat, having to make adjudications, taking into account the rules, the circumstances, and with players all trying to give their account of what happened, it can be difficult, particularly when the decision must be made quickly. The starting point for me though is always that the cards are mucked and dead, and then if possible you work back from that. To do that, the first question that needs to be answered is, would making the cards live again be in the best interest of the game? Generally, if a player unintentionally mucks their cards because they weren't following the game or the action, then it will be a case of bad luck to them, and I wouldn't intervene. However, there are lots of things that need to be considered. Was it a new player who just made a mistake? What is the penalty for them having mucked their cards? For example, will they be eliminated from the tournament as a result? Was it a dealer error? All of these factors, plus more, must be considered before a decision is made. It is not black and white, and it will always be subjective. Then, if I consider favourably on this first question, in other words, that it is in the best interest of the game to make the cards live again, then the second question comes into play. Are the cards identifiable and retrievable? Again, the rulebook does not give much clarity on what these two words mean, leaving it instead up to the TD to interpret their meaning. Obviously, we all know what they mean from a general sense. What we need to know is their definition in the context of a game of poker. This is an error on the part of the lawmakers, I believe. While some rules need to have some discretionary application, this is not one of them. Clarity here is needed. Without it, there are just too many different interpretations and as a result too many inconsistencies. I believe that when looking at interpreting the statement, the cards must be identifiable and retrievable, it must be looked at from the perspective of maintaining the integrity of the game. And in the situation where muck cards are made live again, this can only mean one thing, that the cards being made live must 100% or near enough to be the correct cards. Looking through this lens, it becomes clearer then what these words actually mean. Let's start with identifiable. In simple language, the word identifiable means that the player whose cards have been mucked must know exactly the rank and suit of the cards in question. Retrievable. Again in simple language, the word retrievable means that the player whose cards have been mucked must know exactly in the muck where the cards lay. The emphasis here is on the word exactly. For both of these, anything less and suddenly the integrity of the game at hand can be questioned or compromised. Further to this premise, the player must only get one chance to nominate the rank and suit of the cards, and one chance to point out where the cards lay. I have seen situations whereby the TD has gone through the muck looking for the player's stated cards, and then once found, they were made live again. In my opinion, this going fishing practice is an incorrect application of the rules, and one which puts a severe dent in the integrity of the game. So, in practice, it may play out as follows. The player in question will tell the TD what his cards were, rank and suit, and where they lay in the muck. The TD will then grab those cards and confirm that they are what the player stated. If there is a positive match, the cards will be made live again. If not, then the player's cards will remain mucked and the game will resume normally. While my application can lead to harsh results, I believe that in the long term it will be for the betterment of the game. The aim for everyone that loves the game must be to protect the game's integrity, and that can only happen if officials and players alike strive to uphold maxims such as this. That's all for this edition of TD Corner.